First off, I want to say I really appreciate everyone joining this evening. As we're getting started, I'd like to cover the session disclaimer. This live chat and the Codings Talk series does not represent the opinions or strategies of AkzoNobel International Paint. And additionally, I make every effort to provide accurate and up-to-date information from the global protective coatings and corrosion industries. And despite this care and attention, it is reasonably possible that the content and or chat conversations within this live broadcast may have content that might be incomplete and or inaccurate. Now, the information and chat conversations on this live broadcast are offered without any form of guarantee or claim to accuracy. There's no liability that's accepted for the consequences from such errors, and no agreement shall be reached on the basis of such errors. Recording, distributing, and any other use of this live chat is not permitted without written permission from Jim Kunkel, that's me. And I am recording this session audio for rebroadcasting and to have an archive recording. So let's go ahead and start. This conversation this evening, this live chat, is going to be so you want to be a protective coatings inspector. I'm very happy, very pleased to introduce Greg Sprinkle, who's an MCI and a protective coatings specialist with Industrial Inspection Group. Greg, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, Jim, thank you very much for inviting me, and it's happy to see some of my friends have joined the broadcast. Greg Sprinkle. I reside in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm one of two owners in Industrial Inspection Group. My other partner, Chad Kaufman, resides in the Pennsylvania area. We're currently a QP5 industrial inspection company. So the QP5 designation gives us the access to a lot of government work. We currently have operations in Guam, Kings Bay, Alaska, California. So Air Force bases, generally API 653 work, tank work, some piping and things of that nature. My background is when I was 19, I worked for Dunn Edwards Paints, which was a West Coast paint supplier, just essentially house and commercial paints. Then had the opportunity in the 1990s to go work for DeVoe Coatings, now international. So when I had the opportunity to work for them, I got involved with NACE and SSPC, did my NACE certification in 1997. Since then, I've completed my master's coating one. I was the number 17 on that. Completed PCS, helped draft some of the concrete course that SSPC used to teach. I wrote the coatings and lining section for that. So been in the industry all my life. It's an industry I love. Fantastic friendships. And that's basically where my history has been. I'm excited to talk to you about opportunities in the inspection world and where we've come.
Yeah, great to have you. Michael, I'm going to go ahead and open up your, get you up here on the stage. If you can open up your mic. If you want to say something, just unmute yourself. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and send you back, Michael. Maybe he's, the one thing I wanted to let everybody know too, on the menu bar regarding the live chat, you're going to have some buttons there for you. You can ask to speak, and that means you want to come up onto the stage, have me open up your mic, and you participate in the live chat with everybody. The other things that you can do is they have reactions where you can actually wave, give a thumbs up. And then the important thing, which I'd appreciate, is you can give us hearts too. So we really like those hearts. So Greg, let's go ahead and get this kicked off. Let's talk about the first topic I want to cover, which is industrial painting inspector, errors of the past. And when we look at what the past was, and I want to say it's going to be, we go beyond the last decade, we go a little further back. Real basic role and responsibility of inspector, where it was just to simply verify that the surface preparation and the industrial painting that was conducted by the contractor, that it met the owner specification and requirement. And it was pretty much that. It was that, observe and document. That past role, why was inspection like that? And why is it so different today, in your opinion?
Yeah, and that is one that in my session or level one course in 1997, I can't tell you how adamantly I disagreed with it then. And to this day, I'm very pleased to hear that over the last maybe 5 years, they've really gotten away from what they considered to observe, document, assess, and record. Um, Essentially what they were saying, and I would ask the questions in meetings, so you're saying that if I watched a contractor miscatalyze 100 gallons of material, as long as I had a picture or a record of that, you'd be good with that. And I can't tell you the replies I got that there was a disconnect almost in from what was being taught about just merely observe, document, and record. And then you're going to hand that off to someone that hired you in their perception, in their eyes, as an expert in that field to advise and go forward. I think the reason it was done was for liability and not getting involved in a project and merely just trying to document and enforce a specification. But where we've come from there is noticing that wasn't the perception from the engineer or the owner. And where we've come to now is more of a partnering phase and a phase that I've prescribed from day one. I've always partnered with the supplier, the contractor, in a way that if we can help them get across that finish line and build in efficiencies, they're very pleased with that part of the relationship. And on a technical basis, where we can help them is where I've always taken that approach. I don't work for owners that don't want their assets back. I don't work for owners that don't believe schedule and money have a role. We don't work for anyone that don't believe that those have places. So what I've found in my 25 years of certification in doing this is what contractors are looking for is consistency and any kind of help you can participate in from a technical. To not speak up was almost a sin in my view of it. And to let you know how I got around that is the next chapter in that same level 1 course was about defining roles and responsibilities and authority. So I would go to my owners or whoever I work for and say, hey, do you want me to point out to the contractor, or basically much like a safety, right? If safety is everyone's responsibility, do you want me to point that out to them and not let them miscatalyze material, maybe not let them miscatalyze any, and point that out? And the answer was always, yeah, we would like a more of a helpful role. And I think it was almost set up back in the day as an adversarial one. And it's taken many years to convince people that is a losing strategy. It just is. These owners are hiring these contractors to perform the work they believe that they're qualified to do. And if there's discrepancies in that and you have the technical abilities to help them through that, I think that is the role and responsibility of what we're actually being hired for. The document recording is very valuable for future use, for environmental reasons, we could go on and on about the reasons we document it, for failure analysis maybe down the road, or again, when you're removing it 20 years from now, what was it? How thick was it? So those are all very valuable things to the contractor in the next phase. So that was my assessment from day one. I never believed in it and I've never supported it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that they're teaching something different now.
I totally agree with you. And, for me, when I had done my level 1, it was reinforced with ODAR, like we were just talking about, to observe and record and document. And what I found, and this is just my perception, that it really was playing to the minimums. And what I mean by that is, you were minimum level type of training on instrumentation. You're basically set out to watch contractors that are performing the surface preparation, maybe mix and put thinner and apply the paint under whatever acceptable conditions, confirm the thickness, do dry film thicknesses, document it, boom, you're done. Where today, in the last decade, we've seen such an amazing, drastic change where you've seen a lot of the schemes that are out there, and be it, NACE, SSPC, AMP, whoever else out there is doing these certifications, they've gone through and totally redone, revamped, revised, and really upgraded a lot of the certifications. And they made it to a point where you could not be, working in a McDonald's one day and then all of a sudden you're a certified level 3 coatings inspector. So it's really kind of helped, along with other things too, kind of help clean up. But it's created a career path for the professional inspector, either to do like you have done, where you have a firm, you're a QP5 inspection firm, doing work out there. So let's kind of move forward and let's talk about current times and really, let's say, the new and improved involved coatings inspector. And the first area that I've observed over the last decade and changes is really related to physical abilities, and that now you're seeing not the code, you're not really seeing that coatings inspector sitting in his pickup truck or just staying totally on the ground. Having them up at heights, having them up on scaffolding, working on in confined spaces, and then other things too that they really need to have, like the importance of having color vision and also proper vision and lighting and everything, because you can't inspect what you can't see and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about the importance when it comes to physical abilities for coating inspectors?
Yeah, it is somewhat important. Obviously, we do a lot of water storage tanks. Obviously, some are elevated in New Mexico and some of the other areas we assess, and those are going to be 80 to 130 feet tall. So some of those ladders and some of those climbing abilities can be testing even for the most fit people. Certainly, once you get to the top of those tanks, that you're now entering a confined space, and a lot of those manways or entry points are 24-inch at best. Some of the vessels we go into are 12, 14-inch, so they can be very tight. And where the safety concerns come in, especially when it's a painted vessel, is high voltage holiday detecting, or some of those where you might have solvents or some of those. So I can't strongly recommend enough. But when it comes to spark testing or any of those, really be on your toes about making sure that LELs and all those are sniffed properly. And it's some of the points that we look at safety wise. That's where we would assess it from.
Yeah, and when you think about it, you're performing a lot of the tests. You're running instruments. In most cases, like you said, you're wearing PPE. You might be wearing respirators. You might be wearing other, and you're trying to perform this at the same time. So you've got a lot of things to keep in your mind to make sure that you're doing it properly. And in addition to
That's
that, like
right.
we said, with the holiday testing, with voltage, and so.
Yeah, and also you're around, if you're performing any, a lot of wet film testing would be conducted if you're using 100 solids material. So you're right, you're exposed to chemicals or isocyanates or things that can be dangerous. So respirator fit test might be a requirement. We're on a job at Fort Hood in Texas where the Corps of Engineers is very strict about our personnel being fit tested, even though they're not allowed to be in the tank while they're spraying. So again, there's conditions with facial hair, or so specific requirements for each job can as far as equipment and climbing and the physical attributes of the job. I mean, and even just the travel part of it. They're not building infrastructure next to every place that we have that someone lives. So I see Michael's on here. Michael worked with us. He's very aware of how that can be taxing on a family. So I would bring that up to people too. The money can be good for traveling people that have that interest, and also for people that would want to localize. If there's anyone listening now that says, "Hey, I live in Louisville," or wherever you live, I would help them grow that territory. You could find local people. The key would be calling, just as a representative for a paint company. You're going to call on engineers, owners. I call on contractors. I mean, contractors are a great source of lead, and you could absolutely perform those type of inspections, and as you grow, build out from there. But it's a very localized business and industry, so no matter where you live, you might have to expand a little farther out of your geographical comfort zone. But as far as the industry, and it's something I've loved, and understanding that part of the sacrifices that come with it can be physical and obviously emotional.
That's a good point to bring up as well. If anyone would want to participate in this live chat, all you need to do is hit the raise your hand. And what I can do is bring you up on stage, open up your mic, and you can participate with Greg and myself. So, Greg, let's move into training and certification, where we've seen amazing changes. Well, I'm saying amazing for myself because, working for an organization that provided training and certification, and then working in the industry, I've seen a lot of focus and emphasis on really improving. And this is global. This goes to other organizations that also do training and certification when it comes to paint inspection and things like that. The first one that I wanted to talk about is really defining the roles. The levels. So I work in the coatings industry. I work for International, and I work in and around specification. So for me, the only professional certification I can obtain in the industry is the certified protective coating specialist. I'm not on job sites. I'm not inspecting, but I can become a level one, and I did obtain level one in protective coatings inspection and also in concrete coatings inspection as well. So what I always viewed, even back then when I took those, that at best I'm a technician. I'm like an inspection technician. I know how to work the tools. I know what process and procedures are, but I'm not the one making the call. I'm going to a Greg Sprinkle with all my information, and Greg, you're a level 3 and all these other things. You're the one with the experience, the certification, and also to the knowledge to be able to make those calls. What's your opinion? And again, we're not going to get political or anything like that, but what's kind of your opinion when it comes to the division of level 1, level 2, level 3s, or some of the classifications now that are out there regarding coatings inspectors?
Okay, well, just to give you a little background, I was actually on one of the committees that joined the certifications, the PCI, which was the SSPC, or where you came from, and NACE. So there was 4 of us. There was essentially 4 SSPC, 4 NACE, and myself, that basically took both those certifications and tried to adopt, at least for the CIP program, what those would look like. And the reasons the adjustments were made to basic coating inspector, certified coating inspector, and senior coating inspectors, because I also see a lot of specifications and a lot of people that were on the call that would literally just say NACE certified inspector. So that what left it open to a wide variety of interpretation. And I think you said it kindly that, someone that might go through a level 1 might not be the same as a level 3, and they were sold as the same from whoever, right? I mean, just saying, hey, well, we have a NACE certified guy. The engineer, the owner here is, well, they're NACE certified. That's all they needed to hear. They didn't know they understand the levels and all of that to some degree. And that's kind of where that program came from. So if you're asking me what I see out there in my whole life, NACE level 1 is the God, it's the king, it's AMP level CIP 1 now. That is literally every day of my life, including this morning, every day of my life, that is the class. That is the one that absolutely shows you a glimpse into the world of, it gives you a little bit of theory, but it gives you a lot of testing and kind of some of the math behind it. Now, if you're talking about from a manufacturer's rep, the one you've done is paint coating, the PCS.
Yeah.
SSPC, and I believe NACE had one. All my search came outside of my NACE. All of mine were SSPC. My PCI, I had PCI, I had CCI, BCI. I've always viewed the two. To go into my history, I always have viewed NACE as white collar or engineering in theory, and my history has always been SSPC. It was blue collar standards, pounding it out. Like the guy, we're the one that did the work part of it.
The practical side. Yeah,
they went down a really CP route, which is fine. I've said it before. If I thought tape and extension cords to steel worked, I wouldn't be in the painting industry. But I just have found that in blending the two, the challenges have been the understanding of the roles and functions. So NACE number 1, like that CIP 1. If you had to rank them, I'd put CIP 1 would be the class I would recommend first. Then if you can get the PCS, where that brings value, that PCS has such great value to the owners you work for, because then you have an understanding of the chemistry of paints. You have an understanding of design and putting systems together. So, you delve a little more into epoxy and poly, and that is extremely good. So someone that has, if you look at our 20 guys, essentially, there's only 2 or 3 of us that have a PCS, but all of them have either a NACE 3 or NACE 2.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the level of importance would be NACE 1, then probably the PCS is what I would target. NACE 1, NACE 2, PCS. And I've always enjoyed, I really like that concrete course. I find that is, whether you see it specified enough, I don't know that I would invest that one first, but I tell you this, that is really a class that will open your eye. The NACE 1, the CIP courses don't cover concrete, not in the way that SSPC or the AMP CCI course does now. And so that would be the ranking of, if you looked at value, if you wanted to invest money in courses, going through CIP 1, 2, and 3, then maybe blend in. If you had to wait between the 2 and 3, I would try and go for my PCS. Those people are very valuable. So if you look at our QP5 work, for example, Jim, we are required to have a PCS that is separate from our inspector. So let's say Michael Letchworth goes out and does an inspection for us in Guam. Chad or myself have to be required. What the PCS does, and why that's a wonderful cert, is because you can do it from home. It could be a work from home. And what you do is you review specifications, you're reviewing technical data sheets, and that person is outside of the realm of the inspector. So if you had a PCS, I could sub work to you saying, hey, we need you to review this for us. And that's why that certificate, I was so proud to see that one, because I agree with you. There were a lot, including myself. When I worked at DeVoe paid for my NACE 3. So I'm a paint guy out selling paint, but yet I have a CIP level 3, like I get it. So like it kind of one of the, I guess if they could go back and not give the McDonald's guys all the CIP trees, that's kind of where all this went. And I really like the direction, not necessarily of what they joined and did, but where we could go. I'm all in on helping. There's no going backwards for me.
No, I agree on that. And the thing with me in taking the PCI, I'm working specifications, even when I was with SSBC and then to transition into AMP with the merger with NACE, it was specification. So it made sense for me to pursue PCS for myself. And I did the SSPC. There was a slight difference between the NACE version and the SSPC, but the new AMP version is kind of a combination. Let's say it's more like, I would call it an enhanced SSPC PCS, but that's what I call it. It was important for me to take PCI because I needed that perspective when it comes to the practical side, because that's the area I kind of lack. I don't work for a contractor. I work for an organization. I now work for, a coatings company, and I've never worked in a contracting environment. I've never been on a crew. Now, that being said, and it kind of in a way I did back when I first kind of started into, when I did first start into coatings, it was powder coatings. And I worked for a steel fabricator in the Pittsburgh market who bought a fabrication outfit that had a 750-foot powder coat line. And we sold powder coating. And so that was my first experience in the coatings. But then my world opened up to a larger when getting into industrial coatings and, all these very unique type of specialty coatings, and then getting involved with contractors through SSPC. But for me, it was important to take PCI and Concrete Coatings Inspector as a CCI because it gave me a different perspective that I would not get from PCS. And it really kind of helped me appreciate, now that I work around projects, that I can understand the importance of the specification and then the other things that go into it, and then have a basic understanding of what typically is going to go on in a project. Now, I've been on sites where projects are being done, but I don't do that every single day. Like, you're doing that. You guys are doing that all the time. And we've got people in the audience that are doing that all the time, where you're actually out there, part of the involved parties. You're part of that greater team to try to finish that project, a coating project for the customer. The other thing I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit is all of because this is something a lot of people, is the continuing education requirements to maintain your certification. It is critical, I say, for you to stay in touch of the industry changes. And we're working in a very dynamic, ever-evolving industry and in the protective coating side, where these coating systems are becoming more advanced, they're becoming more technical, they're becoming more specialized, and you need to be up to date on best practices, industry changes, way things are done, and all that. So continuing education is super important. The other thing is, a lot of the times you're required, and I'd like to maybe have you cover some of these safety credentials that you need to have, OSHA related or other types of training, especially related to, let's say, hazardous coatings. Is there anything that you'd like to share regarding safety credentials that you need, or if you're working around hazardous coatings removals, some of the training you might need to have, or certs?
Most of ours I think are OSHA 30 would be probably a starting point. OSHA 10, OSHA 20, OSHA 30 for us is pretty standard. We are involved with ISN Network, which is a safety network that basically qualifies contractors or vendors for various agencies use it. So we're involved with many different organizations, and a safety record for an inspection company, believe it or not, is looked at equally as that of a contractor that would be on site. But specifically, the OSHA, we follow anything OSHA, obviously site specific. Generally on our government work, there's going to be someone from the Corps of Engineers that is site or safety specific. So we employ someone that has OSHA 500 that's on our staff that basically keeps all our guys. We're required per our QP5 to have vision tests that you brought up earlier. For our guys, we have to perform annual physicals, not for insurance, but just for physical work duty. And again, safety requirements for us would be, harnesses, hard hat, obviously safety toes, depending on, and somewhat site specific, but you're correct that the industry has gone very quickly and differently with the types of coatings and the hazardous situations that you're put in. Some gone the other direction with 100 solids materials, so actually solventless, and single coat applications, which I couldn't applaud more. I think most of the failures I've seen in my entire career are based on the belief that something slick can stick to something slick. And I preach this all my life. Trusting a chemical recoat window instead of profile is a mistake that I see on a daily basis. I mean, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. The steel temps are 140 by 10 a.m. So if you think that epoxy is going to be a 6-month recoat window at 125 degrees, you got another thing coming. It's probably 48 hours. So some of the practices and things that I preach in the technology, the 100 solids materials that we're seeing and supplying on most of the tanks we're doing now, so especially all the water tanks because of NSF 600. And like you're saying, and to lead into that, you have to stay up on the industry, because if you looked even at January 1st of this year, so people have always kind of followed ANSI 61, which is a drinking water standard that most manufacturers have to comply with to put things in an immersion grade for drinking potable water. Now that is NSF 600. So like, had you not known that, and you're looking as an inspector and you're seeing, N140, they're grandfathered in, or whatever that product would be, 646 PW, sorry, Adam. But whatever the product is, that is something as an inspector you would want to be up and familiar with. The products being specified, are they current with those certifications? So if you're not industry accessible, then you would absolutely fall behind. So to me, I encourage all our guys. I would pay for any of our guys to continue their education in any way. I try and tell them all, just pick a course, and anything you want to do is I can't elevate that enough, that the more certifications you have, the more valuable you are. It really is almost that simple. For us, again, the ones that are specified though are certainly the CIP 1, 2, and 3, or CIP, you'll see, and PCS.
Yeah. Another area too, really, in keeping update, is standards knowledge and making sure that you understand. I had done an audio on the SSP, CSP, CABs, the concrete abrasive blast standards that came out in 2019, and people were like, what?
Yeah, I have it right in front of me. I'm blown away you just said that, because I wanted to bring that up too, that people didn't even understand. They always refer to SSPC, SP13, for example, for concrete, right? And so let's say you wanted it sandblasted. So you wanted to specify that so we could pay the contractor to get paid for that. Because SB13 would allow for water, let's say, or hydrojetting, or whatever they wanted to do to return it to sound concrete. By specifying SSPC, SPCAB1, which you're correct, came out in 2019, that specifically would then refer to abrasive blast cleaning concrete. So now, knowing that, I throw that in as an additional specification, knowing that I want that sandblasted. I don't want to leave that open to interpretation. And I have 20 of us that work at my firm. You know how many of them knew about that standard? Zero. So you're correct in that. And that's, again, why staying up on current systems or specifications are just crucial. I mean, there's opportunity to learn and put in things in specifications. And you mentioned lighting, right? So there's obviously an illumination guide. So
Yes.
PH12, I believe, or whatever it was. So some of those, to have familiarity with those, and to be able to read specifications, is another skill set that I strongly suggest everybody, when you're reading through it, call me. I'll walk you through anything, what it means. You got to learn to read contractor. You got to learn to understand engineer, because the biggest sin in our industry, without question, is there are no specifications that are site and project specific, and they rarely differentiate between new and rehabilitation, right? So if you're in Phoenix, Arizona versus Pittsburgh, do you think we're going to use the same paint? I mean, you mentioned it was 30 something degrees or whatever. It was 110 here in Phoenix Saturday. So with steel temps, again, of 100. So we're not using moisture cured polyurethanes. We're not using moisture cured zincs out here. We work in Las Vegas and Nevada. And I can't tell you how many times I see these people using Portland mortars as resurfacers for concrete. And it's just a failure waiting to happen. So if a specification is not site and project specific, that's where you're going to do your contractors favors as an inspector. You might go to them and say, hey, like, this is where to catch this. This is in the submittal phase. Have the opportunity. So any of your knowledge that can be used to help a job or move efficiencies forward would be much appreciated, not just by the contractor, but by your owner. Again, schedule, money, quality, right? It's all three. It literally is a third, a third, a third. It's not 90% quality and screw the other two. It isn't. It's not that way. And anyone that follows that path will not be successful, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of the topic theme that you just kind of mentioned was covered in last Wednesday's audio chat, where we were talking about pre-project meetings. Before the project kicks off, you got the contractor, the inspector, you got owner representation, paint company representative there to do that pre-job run through and clarify everything, maybe clean up something that might be. For example, like you're talking about, they got, the traditional for surface prep on concrete. And, oh, by the way, they have these CABs. So, maybe that comes into play where you're kind of fixing some things that might have been missed, or there might be some errors and things like that. Another area.
Really want to catch that in a pre-bid. You really want to catch that in a pre-bid. So again,
that too. Yes, you're right.
Any contractors that I work with and that are bidding current work, I said, hey, send me your specs. I'm going to tell us where they're going to trip us up, right? It's no fault of the engineers. I'm not here to pick on engineers. I'm just saying they're writing blanket specs. So what worked for a manhole must work for chlorine contact basins, right? But it doesn't, and that's the problem. So I tell them, send me your specs. And you know what I preach to everyone that is in the sound of my voice? You should use the submittal, whether you're a paint supplier or a contractor, to submit to your owner or your general contractor, whoever you're submitting to. You should submit to them what is correct. Let them say, no, we want to do it incorrectly. Let them put that in writing saying, we're rejecting what you're saying. You're trying to help them, right? You're trying to build inefficiencies and costs in the job. All I'm saying is let them reject the submittal. Now you have something to go back to them and say, I tried to tell you that we're not going to use SECA 123 as a resurfacer. That's not going to work. And you said, no, use it anyway. Because otherwise, you look at the flip side of that coin as a contractor. You sold them on the idea that you're an expert. So once you submit a system that you knowingly know is wrong, how do you not have culpability into it? And my answer is you do. So the submittal almost replaces the specification. What I was taught in the 90s was the specifications of the Bible. There's no deviate. It's just not true. It's never been true. The submittal replaces that. The submittal is what we're actually going to perform, and actually is a supplement to the specification. It doesn't replace it, but the sections that are absolutely replacements. If they're changing the system or the mills or the prep, that submittal overrides that. And that's the opportunity that I try and preach is, hey guys, I looked at one at Kings Bay. Okay. This is how I got in there was because it was Amber like 370 or something. It was a polyamide epoxy that they were specifying, but they were doing a mean blush testing kit. And I'm like, why would you guys ever do that? That's actually detrimental. It's a contaminant, if anything. And they're like, we don't have to do that. I'm like, isn't it a mean epoxy? And they're like, no. And I'm like, then why would you do right? So that's a benefit to Morton, so to the contractors we work for. And that's what I'm always telling them, like, send me your stuff. Let me look through it. Let's see where we want to go to the engineer, because you're a crooked contractor. I'm the coatings guy. So they're going to listen to me, right? That's essentially what I try to tell them is let's go in and partner in this together, because sandblasting in environments for me isn't always great. There's times we're working in neighborhoods or noise or Palo Verde nuclear power plant where they don't care who you are. So what we do is we wet blast and then we paint it with Amerlock 400 or whatever, a surface tolerant primer. Again, you have to look at specific circumstances. So to me, having an opportunity to look at those specifications and dealing with the contractors you're going to potentially be working with up front is a brilliant strategy. It's not collusion. It's the opposite. It's trying to come up with a system to go to the owner engineer. And if they say, hey, no, this has been successful, it's in the past, duly noted, then you try and help the contractor push through the best you can. Having them on the job site longer and pushing that longer, my guys don't live in those job sites. They want to go home too. It's not advantageous to cost them time and money just to flex. It's just a poor way to do business. And I'm just saying, please use your knowledge for good. I mean, if you can truly see something that you can help someone with, I mean, isn't that the rule in safety, Jim? I mean, right? If you see something, you're supposed to say something. Yeah. It's no different in my world. If you have the technical ability to say, hey, bro, I noticed it was 140 degrees and 7 days. What would it take for me to pay you to sweep blast that? Or can we call Jim and say, hey, what's the recoat window looking like? And try and get involvement in that if you can get him to buy in. And the only way you can get a contractor to ever buy in is if you have the knowledge to back it up. And that comes from your certifications, your experience, and And again, I just can't preach enough to try and be part of the solution. The days of being adversarial to set up these fights is just it didn't work then, and it's not going to work now. And that's the whole message I wanted to bring to this topic is really try and help. There's a way to do it together. It really is, and it gives the owner a better job. It's not collusionary.
No, and current trends are the owners are leaning heavily on, you know, individuals, professionals like yourself and other coatings inspectors out there to really kind of help move that project, because their ultimate goal is we want it done within the specification, we want it done properly, we want it done on time, and by having a better involvement and really in a way for the coatings inspector to have a little bit more, let's say, interaction and a little bit than just doing basic type of checks and going in there and doing whole points and things like that, really looking out for things, calling out maybe some safety issues, because at the end of the day, it's about moving the project forward. But if you're able to save lives and save time and collaborate that way to get that project done, that is an important thing. That's really what owners are looking for. That's in my opinion. Another thing too that this is kind of goes into coming out of the AMP conference in Denver. I was absolutely amazed with instrumentation, the demos that were done, and then also too a lot of discussion regarding new testing methods, ways to analyze, and then the ultimate thing where things have been moving for at least the past 10 years, or maybe, well, I'd say definitely the last 10 years, is the use of inspection with the digital reporting and things like that. We're starting to see a lot more of that digital stuff, instantaneous type of reporting, and being able to have that testing instrument actually calibrate with the digital reporting and have all those things happen. When it comes to participating with organizations globally, it could be AMP or whoever else, and then also to attending conferences, maybe even some of the smaller conferences that you might have, or chapters where they're going to be covering technical and things like that. How important it is for inspectors to be involved at that level to continue education when it comes to equipment or other new things that are coming from suppliers and manufacturers.
I was at the AMP conference in Denver as well, and I find it absolutely it's a very integral part of our business. And when you mention digital reporting, I'll give a shout out to TrueQC. That's who we use. All ours are done. All our reporting is done in real time. So all our gauges will all download all that data. It's all sent to one of us that would review that report at night. So our turnover of our reports are daily. So it's whatever inspections we did are basically an Apple iPad, that all that forms that we've created are filled out. Then the pictures are basically, you take them with your iPad and you float them in. And as far as technology, I mean, you can already see they're using drones for doing UT assessments and stuff. That's obviously going to come for DFTs, but that might be tricky to get a 5-gallon bucket on that drone to touch it up if it was light, but maybe that'll come too. Again, for UT wall thicknesses, we're seeing it there. We actually use LiDAR a lot. You can, take profile readings essentially on the whole tank. You can strap tanks. So the technology is absolutely on its way. Most of DeFelsco's, if you look at even from when I started, their Positector 6000, now they have, these little feet that if you've seen the gauges, you have one, an SPG. So it's a surface profile gauge. It's a ambient gauge. It's it's an IR thermometer. It's a salt tester. So that one body now has interchangeable features on the bottom. So we just order inspection kits from various suppliers, and basically that kit would come with a surface profile, a film thickness, DFT probe, and then whatever else, chlorides, sulfites, and nitrates have become so tested for. I think it's every one of our government jobs requires. So that's again in a difference in the industry, Jim, that wasn't as prevalent. So the types of testing you're talking about, you're seeing now have increased, and the technology from mapping, 3D imaging, drones. If you talk to Drayton Atkins, another person that's very active in that, Juan is, they're kind of the newer generation that are up and coming with that type of technology, and how to assess. And that's really where I see the greatest part about it is in asset assessment. So they have a very 3D mapping, LiDAR, and drones, in my opinion, they are the future of that mapping. Is you're still going to need people to input data and determine what that data means. But as far as that surveying, I think that's where it's going, instead of the 50-page going out and the API 653 way.
Yeah. So let's move into experience now. Training and certifications, I mean, they're great, but experience in the field and on projects is the true qualifier. You know, why is it important? Let me ask you, why is it important in the global protective coatings industry to require verified on-the-job inspection experience to advance to a level 2, to a level 3?
For me, I can tell you this. I don't know if the number's 90 or 100%. What I have learned is all from contract. I mean, it's neat to say what paint will do and what it should do and what it can do, and those are all great marketing tools. But all my knowledge is straight up experience. The last 3 concrete failures of Las Vegas, Albuquerque, and Yuma, Arizona were all based in experience. So when I was able to go to each one of those jobs, I knew immediately what happened, why it happened, and without that experience of being around that, you can't. It's just truly one of those in our industry, I guess in every industry, but you can't beat experience. And then if you're not comfortable in that, that's what makes a bad inspector is these inconsistencies, because they don't know what they're either looking at or doing, and they don't have the experience. And without that experience, to me, again, call me or call. What I love is peer checking. Like I was on a job this morning. I said, "Hey, Chad, this guy's got a 185 compressor, 200 feet of hose. How successful do you think he's going to be putting a 3 mil profile on steel?" And we just kind of laughed and chuckled. But peer checking and just checking with your fellow inspectors on because there's time you're going to get burned. You're going to have a contractor that's going to know more or have read the standard better, and that is something you have to avoid at all costs. So, I would say tread lightly and peer check, but without the experience, whether you're a paint manufacturer. I see Adam Neal on here with Sherwin-Williams. He every job site, he's out there hustling with us. He uses all our inspection tools, and I can't endorse him enough because of the way he takes the approach of learning all that aspect of it. Because you're asking contractors to go out and do stuff, and then when they call you out on something and you don't know the field side of it, they lose respect for you. There's no doubt about that. Contractors all based on respect and that experience. If you're telling them to do something that you have no experience based in doing that, it's gonna, you really got to step lightly with contractors on means and methods. That's their little baby, So unless that means and methods brings an efficiency to them, you might want to watch it, pretty closely with that. So I can give you an example. I looked up this morning, we're on 14 different tank projects, water tanks, believe it or not. 9 different contractors. So we have the opportunity on 9 different contractors to see how they go about sequencing their work. You don't think that's valuable to each one of them? It is, because we take the best of what I had. A 3 million we did in 7 weeks. I had another contractor was 4 months. Same scope, same pro. I mean, it's just one of those. So we learn to build in efficiencies, and what we'll do is we'll take those to the next contractor and say, hey, have you thought of this? Have you understood you're using 0 temperature cure products in 150-degree temperatures versus Pittsburgh or whatnot? And that's really where I see the experience coming in is I'm able to see now in specifications where it's going to trip us up because of the time we're going to paint it or because of the systems you're asking me to do, whether that's the surface prep being excessive, right? Not everything needs to be sandblasted. That's the go-to because they don't know what they're doing. And that's what you will learn very quickly when you see inspectors that are come off strong or something. They're inexperienced. They don't have the experience. So when in doubt, they just deny and reject stuff. Writing up non-compliance reports is just a lack of knowledge on what you needed to get done. Right or wrong, Jim, what I will tell you is these owners believe that hiring a NACE, AMP inspector, SSPC inspector, they're hiring an expert in that field. It doesn't mean that those roles and responsibilities are due. So on our government work, we're there to document and record, right? That's the deal. They're not changing their specs. But on every other job, we do have influence on that, and the owner appreciates that. They're getting engineering specifications that aren't always dialed in specific to their project, and it's up for us to help them cross that finish line. Hey, did you know you're using a zinc in Phoenix, Arizona that requires 50% humidity? So I looked it up for the last 37 years. We only had that day once. And so unless that's coming up soon, right? You know what I'm saying? So again, that's kind of the message I roll with is the experience part of it. If you don't have it, please just call someone in peer check or just step aside, go back and and read that specification again, or go back and read the data sheet before you mouth off. Or, hey, I'll tell you what, the other great people are paint supplier. They have great color tech service and say, hey, this is what your data sheet says. Because most of them don't go beyond 120 degrees or below, right? For recoat times, for a mean blush or whatever. So you're going to want to call and say, hey, just out of curiosity, at 140 degrees, what would that recoat window look like? And they're like, wow, we don't really have testing for that. It looks like you're going to be sweet blasting it. And that's an answer you can go to. So if you check that out before you maybe mention that to a contractor, you're going to be better off than just saying you need to sweet blast, and they call their manufacturing friend and they tell them, no, you can just hand sand it. That's a misstep. And that's where you got to be careful. So that experience will teach you those things where there's no book that NACE ever showed me. That's theory about how things will work. The real world, hey, you sell 235 bar rust, right? That's got a 4-hour pot life at 100 degrees. Promise you, it's 15 minutes. So that's experience. That's not something that's on a data sheet.
Yeah, that experience, and then also to having really, you have multitudes of certifications, and then it kind of goes into, the master coatings inspector. That designation, I think, is important because it really shows someone who's really committed to the industry by obtaining multiple certifications at the highest level, and they've verified, they proved, they've really kind of really are high when it comes to experience and things like that. So you have an MCI and a PCS, so I really appreciate working with contacts like yourself, professionals like yourself that have obtained that highest level. So congratulations on that. I don't know how long you've had your MCI.
I actually was I was number 17.
Number 17. Okay.
Yeah, I had it for a little while. Yeah, and I appreciate all of it. It wasn't done out of arrogance, and I don't ever look
No.
there's engineering groups that will want to make sure that but I can't recommend the educational part of it enough. It's just just to have that knowledge, especially like for concrete. I mean, concrete's so misunderstood, and it's the basics that are taught in that level 1 just really leave you. I think Adam maybe can chime in. I think he just did his CCI, and there's some others on that I can see that have it, and I found it to be a very valuable course. And whether you're reading Coatings Pro or some of those and updating, if you have the opportunity with your, you touched on your local, what used to be SSPC, or your local, NACE for us went down the cathodic protection. So our SSPC was kind of our go-to back in the day. Now we have AMP, and what we've done is we've blended meetings for both. So, we'll kind of go over Core Pro, will come and talk about CP. And then I think I spoke a few weeks ago about, basic equipment or something along those lines, or why are we painting stuff? And so we've kind of tried to, that's where I think some of the challenges are going to come in is, it's just blending those two. They're just different philosophies and theories on corrosion protection. And I think that's going to be some of the tug and pull, in my view.
Yeah. If anyone would like to contribute and participate in this live chat, remember just to hit the raise your hand, come up on a stage. We have a couple minutes left, so if there's any questions that anybody might have, also raise your hand, and Greg and I will definitely answer any questions that you have. See if anybody has anything. All right. Well, we'll see if anybody does raise their hand. Hey, Greg, is there anything that we did not? Oh, here we go. Let's bring Adam up. Okay, Adam, you are coming up. We'll get Michael back up here, it looks like, too. Go ahead, Adam. You can unmute yourself and ask away, or if participate any way you want to. Oh. Let's do Michael. All right, let's try it again, Adam. Allow to speak. There we go. Okay, Adam, if you unmute yourself.
Oh, hey, there you are. Hey, guys,
There you go.
how are you? Hey, I just wanted to chime in, Greg. I couldn't agree more about the concrete coating inspector program through AMP. I learned so much in that course, right? So many different things. Like you said, some of the CIPs just kind of get entry level in on, and then you get a really nice overview of everything concrete in that course. And it was probably my favorite piece of education for protective coatings that I've been a part of. So just wanted to chime in and say I couldn't agree more.
Thank you, Adam. I agree. I found it to be extremely, just on a personal level, very, very helpful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Adam. Go ahead, Michael, if you want to unmute yourself and. All right. Well, he's unmuting himself. Greg, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd want to leave before we end the live chat?
Again, I just really want everybody on this broadcast and in our industry to know that my phone is available. I work 7 days a week. I would happily talk about what it takes to be an inspector, how to help you professionally. I'll help you with anything, reviewing, just anything. I love our industry. I don't know what it is, but I caught the paint bug a long time ago, and I feel like giving back to anyone. And if there's anyone that needs anything from me, I'm sincere in what I say.
Oh, very good. And how can people, well, you already gave information, but should people connect with you? Let's say follow you on LinkedIn, or is there other ways?
Our website is just IND, the letters IND, like industrial inspect. So indinspect.com. My phone number's on that website. You can contact me on that website. You can kind of see what we do. Like I said, any support, from any level of why we've done things over the last 25 years or where they think it's going, I'm very open to, I always return every phone call, every email. So it's kind of one of those, if you're sincere in what you want to know, I'll give it my best shot.
Great. And to follow me, you can follow me on LinkedIn also too, on YouTube. If you search under Jim Kunkel, or Coatings Talk is another way to search it. Please feel free to subscribe to the Coatings Talk YouTube channel, follow my content. Also too, on LinkedIn, I have a new newsletter, over 2,000 subscribers right now, Coatings Talk Insight. And a lot of it really kind of covers the content that I'm doing, but also we'll get some other topics as well. But I appreciate giving me a follow. And also too, if there's any topics that anybody has recommendations on, you can drop me a message through LinkedIn, or you could just email me at jim@jimkunkel.com. Again, jim@jimkunkel.com. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening, your day, your morning, wherever you're at in the world right now. I appreciate everybody. Thank you. And Greg, thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for participating. I'm sorry I was all over the place. I didn't really prepare anything specific, Jim, as you know, but I'm very passionate about it. So thank everybody, honestly, that at least listened into my rambling.
No, you did awesome, and I want you back again. So we'll have to chat again about some other topics.
Yeah, I'll definitely be more prepared. Thanks, Jim.
No worries. All right, everybody, have a good one.
Take care.